Good morning. Welcome to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman Bergeron. It's always a pleasure to be here with each of you. And this is talk number 191. It's hard to believe that I've done this many talks for humanity healing. And I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, for this time slot, and for the personal growth it has allowed to happen for me as I share the messages that come for me with all of you. And even though we may not always agree with each other about what it's about or how we receive it or look at it, they are genuine messages that each of us receive personally, but sometimes hide beneath our fear of others judging us. And so this morning's talk is really about kindred spirits, which began yesterday morning with a brief talk in a morning ceremony. And I didn't read what I had written yesterday morning. And as I gleaned over it this morning, I realized that this message was for here in the presence of light, where I could expand on what it really was about. So good morning, Muhammad, Melissa, Corey, and interesting, now you're all back on this side this morning. Maybe it's a different browser. I don't know. I love how technology plays with me. Every time I show up, there's something different or unique, and that just throws me into this mind space where I have to figure things out when I'm trying to listen to my heart. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And so this morning's topic is really, it's rising, it's spirit rising is really what it's about. And that has many different meanings for each of us. The interesting thing about meanings is that many of us have been taught many different ways of how to look at spirit, or we may think it's religious, or we may think it's sacred and we can't talk about it. And really, the spirit of who you are is who you are when you're not in this physical body. And spirit enters into this body when we first breathe. And we are actually now spiritually in our physical bodies. And that's how I explain it. You may have your own teachings, and I ask you to honor all of your own teachings. If it feels right for you, honor that until it no longer feels right for you, and then seek for another answer. And that's what it's all about, is spirit rising is really about us shifting and changing within ourselves as the world around us changes. And we certainly know that that's changing quite rapidly and expansively. And it's not a pleasant experience for most of us. So in this process, what's happening is each of us are, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we're seeking kindred spirits. And that became a talk on another venue for the week, although it wasn't really kindred spirits, but that's what it was about, is how do we look for something in somebody else that has a likeness to us, where we have a connection, an energetic connection, on a not just an intellectual level, but on a deeper heart connection, where we feel we see ourselves. They're almost a mirror for us. And in essence, that's what kindred spirits are. They become, and they are, mirrors for ourselves. And we get to express ourselves openly and honestly without fear. And fear is a has a big play in this. If you look at the world today and how much fear is being presented to all of us, you realize that fear has been the tool of ruling for thousands and thousands of years. Our ancestors were all ruled by fear. We're being ruled by fear. That's aside. What's important right now is who are we in this field of fear, okay? And how do we recognize the parts of ourselves that are going to rise up out of that? And so when we start to recognize things, we always come to this place of sort of hesitation. Do I accept this? Do I deny this? Is this right? Is this wrong? And this is where we need kindred spirits. So we've all come into humanity healing as kindred spirits under those two words, humanity healing. Because there's a part of us, which is human, and there's a part of us that wants healing. And not only do we want it for ourselves, but we want it for everyone, for all humans. This is our energy field that we all come together, no matter where. I'm looking, and you're from Liverpool, from around the world. So when I talk upstate New York, when I talk, I realize that I'm not just talking to people down the street. I'm talking to people who have different languages, who have different cultures, whose governments are totally different structures, who have different religious beliefs, spiritual guidance, etc. And I try to weave this in so that you can glean something and take away something and go back to your own inner self and try to understand it from within. I want your spirit to guide you. I'm not the teacher. I'm only the presenter of this information. I'm not here as an expert. I am going through this same process with you. And so when I started writing my notes yesterday for that talk, I visioned water droplets, and you know how water drops on a pond or a puddle. And then when they land, there's that moment of hesitation. It like sort of sits on the top and it disappears. And if you watch it closely enough and you find that it has that moment of what I call recognition, that the larger body of water is recognizing the drop as one of its own. It's a kindred spirit. It says, welcome. And it becomes part of the larger body. This is what each of us are. Each one of us are like a drop of water in the pool of humanity. And when we get accepted, there's that feeling of, oh, I feel good. I feel welcome. I feel whole. I feel like I'm part of something. And right now in the world, what we're seeing is so much separation that people are not accepting each other. Then, for whatever reason, doesn't matter. And I'm not even going to get into the reasons, because as there are billions of people, there are billions of reasons. But this is where the spirit now is seeking, because the human mind can't do that. The spirit starts to look for other beings who feel and sense and have a greater vision of what wholeness is and what health is and what embracing each other in kindness and love is. And so we find these kindred spirits. And yet, in the process of that, we also sometimes the kindred spirit appears and it's wonderful, and then all of a sudden things start to change, and there's an aggravation, or it's sort of like a bit of sand or gravel in your, you know, cream cheese, and it's something that's not, there's something not right, and eventually, in a lot of cases, that wonderful kindred relationship ends, and it can end angrily or violently or with a lot of hurt and pain. I want you to understand that this is a natural process of this relationship, that what we're seeking is a mirror so that we can see ourselves as the beautiful beings we truly are, that which God created, and we are part of that creation, and recognize ourselves. So we're looking for that camaraderie, that connection energetically, which accepts us for who we are. When the world around us is telling us, no, you can't go here, you can't do this, blah, 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 blah. Because we realize that that's, it has intention out there and has a purpose out there in the world. But what it's really doing is hurting this inner spiritual self. It hurts. It hurts. And not all of us are able to stuff it down anymore because there's so much being held back that there's just not enough room. So it's always been a sad point in my journey when I've met kindred spirits. And this came up the other day as I released somebody uh, who I love dearly. And if we had a relationship again, I would love to have that relationship again if the air was cleared of all of the pain and suffering. But because of pain and suffering of the individual and my inability to uh, take being attacked at that level, the kindred spirit is no, we have parted. So I want you to understand that if that's happening for you, if you have some close friends or some people you've met in your journey, and everything was just amazingly wonderful, and then all of a sudden, over some what may appear to you as a trivial something you said, what came into this point of crisis, know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone. And in these times of high stress and danger, and literal danger, not only for humans, but for the whole planet, um, we are fragile. We are fragile. Can we accept that? Can we accept our fragility and embrace the fact that uh, in our seeking ourselves, the mirror, we also come to a place where when we are with other people who are kindred spirits, what's happening is our hearts are opening. And as they open, all of those locked chambers inside, and I looked at it as one this morning, but I see now that there's more. They've been locked. All the pain, all the suffering, all the times we were told no, all the times you can't do this, all the times that's wrong. They're in there, and we've stuffed them. And what happens is now that we're opening our hearts and these volumes of pain and suffering, they're there. It's like an open wound. And when the person who we believe is our kindred spirit pokes that, we react. We react because we're not expecting it. We're vulnerable. When we open our hearts, we're vulnerable. And this is a challenging place for us. In the midst of all that's happening, we're taking the choice to become vulnerable because we know the only way out of this is through love. It's through love, and it's through kindness, and it's through compassion. And without love and compassion, we're not going anywhere. None of this is going to change. I don't care what scientists say. I don't care what governments say. I don't care what doctors say. It's not going to happen without love. Because love is the energy. And if you look around us, everything in the world is shutting down the love, except in the hearts of young people who haven't been programmed for as long a period of time as the rest of us have. And they still have that seed of possibility, just like we did. And this is what's happening. When we find these friends, these people who we can open up, something happens and we get hurt. And it brings us right back into that place of fear. And, it's important that each of us realize that aligning with each other is the greatest teacher that we can possibly have, because it takes us out of the place of loneliness. Loneliness in and of itself carries fear. It's a bearer of the fear. And in that moment of loneliness, we seek to be highly alert. We're on alert in order to protect ourselves because we feel highly vulnerable. And so, again, when we meet a kindred spirit, we feel a little safer. We feel a little more welcome. We feel like we have a value. And I say it's very fragile. It's a very fragile moment in our lives. And we have to trust that it's okay to be fragile. When we were infants, when we came out of our mother's womb, we were fragile. And from that moment on, everything that has happened to us, physically, emotionally, has been imprinted and recorded in our heart space. And that which was painful, we've locked down. That which was derogatory, we've locked up. And when we get angry, when we get pushed to the limit where we can't, where we're being attacked, feel we're being attacked, that explodes. And it's not an intentional explosion. It's just an explosion of being overwhelmed and not knowing who you are in that moment and not recognizing the beauty and the power and the truth that you truly are within your heart. It's a moment of disconnection from source, or that which we call God. As somebody's saying, God loves us just the way we are. Still fears pop up. Remind myself to walk in peace, asking for prayers for my family and self. Thank you for your message. Penny, this is where we are. This is what I'm talking about, is we are all in this place of wanting to be loved and wanting respect not only for ourselves but our families. And sometimes that kindred spirit is a member of our family. And how difficult is that to embrace and work through? But I want you, above all things today, is to remember that what we are doing is looking for our own self in each other. And when I speak to you and I read things on the column on the side, I'm looking for myself in there. I'm looking to see, And I'm not looking at it to make me right. I'm looking at it to say, there's a person who is seeking their true self, just as I'm seeking my true self. And in that moment, we can disagree and still know that you're coming from your highest place of understanding, and I'm coming from my highest place of understanding. Yet they're different levels. And the only way we're going to get through this is through conversation or activities that are challenging sometimes to embrace. And when we do that, when we allow ourselves to engage in that, there's a hidden gift. And in that hidden gift may cause extreme emotional energy. It may trigger one of those lockdown packages in our heart to open. And the pain of that may be overwhelming. The energy of that may be, I didn't ever want to hear that again, or I didn't want to see that, or I didn't want to feel that ever again. But just as soon as you have that moment of thought, I want you to think, it's open now. It's released. If I can keep it released, I can work with it. I can make it go away. I can send it off into wherever it goes, the vapors, the trail behind me, and move forward. I no longer have to carry that pain with me into the future. And this is what kindred spirits are inviting us to do. They're inviting us to meet ourselves and to help us to recognize the passion and compassion that we are willing to show towards others also needs to reflect on us as well. We can't just go around doing everything for everyone else without getting extremely exhausted. We have to have some energy coming back to us. And it's in the process of being able to offer passion and compassion to others that we receive it. Because you can't give what you don't have. And this is what God is always doing, is always refreshing us. That Creator is refreshing us and encouraging us to give and give more. The vision that I always, it's the chalice. Become the chalice. Just bend forward. Tip the chalice forward and let some of that love and that light pour out. And the minute we do that, it will be replenished. It will be replenished. And we have to trust that. We have to trust that just being like-minded is not enough. It's like-hearted. It's like-hearted. And I saw somebody's comment here about like-minded, and I'm not going to try to read the thing again, but that's what triggered that. Like-minded is where that confusion and agitation can become, because the minute when we're like-minded, somebody says and becomes not like-minded, boom, what happened? Wait a minute, I thought, you thought, and he thought. We thought. Where is thought? Right here. Two halves of the brain going back and forth. One heart. One heart. Always sending. Sending from you outward. And so, this is where we are. This is spirit rising within us, giving us an opportunity to see spirit in each other, to recognize it, to tap into that attractor field of it, to be embraced in it, and knowing that even though it is all about passion and compassion, we still have to take internally and process the energy internally to release all of that pain, all of that suffering that we individually have endured throughout our lifetime and perhaps our past lifetimes, if you so believe in that. And that's another whole story. But what we have to remember is that in kindred spirits, they're inviting us to look at ourselves and recognize ourselves at a deeper level. And we're here to embrace that moment of recognition, that aha moment where automatically our light shines brighter. We're not here to hold on to everything that raises those frequencies. And so, with that said, we are able to let go of these kindred spirits when the time is needed, if it so calls for it. Because we're meeting together in this sacred vessel, this sacred vessel. And that love is the key to unlocking those vaults that contain the pain and the hurt that have been locked away for whatever the length of our lifetime has been in this physical body. And right now, I encourage everybody to look everywhere. Look everywhere and see and feel that the pain and the helplessness that many people are suffering and experiencing. And look at the random violence and destruction as a sign of the inner wounds of all of us exploding. That each one of us have that potential to boom, go off. And that we need to work through them and release them with love. And so, in all our relationships with each other, whether they're kindred spirits or not, we need to come back to focusing that we are that drop of water dropping into the pond or the puddle or the ocean. And there's always going to be that moment of recognition. So, in that moment of recognition, let us be as brilliant and as loving and as kind as we can be, so that we are welcomed into the larger process. And know that there will be times of struggle and there will be times where we may explode. But let us know that we also have the power and the grace of divine beingness, our Creator, who is always within us, always there as a source of presence to allow us to step deeper out of all of those safes that we've locked all our pain and suffering in. And hopefully we'll come to a place where the wisdom that we learn from allowing ourselves to express that and forgive ourselves is beneficial to the whole world around us, and especially our kindred spirits, because they're not only kindred spirits in the positive way, which is why we seek them, but they're also kindred spirits in the journey through the pain and the suffering. This is where we are all turning the page and entering into a completely new dynamic and dimension of who we are and what we're here to do and how we are to express it. Card I pulled this morning, it's a Archangel Gabriel cards from Shanta Gabriel. They're cute little cards. Be willing to face the fears of the past and move into new dimensions of love. And from my friend Mia, the card reads, gentleness, allow rest, allow healing. How appropriate for all of us. Allow, the word allow. And I want you all to allow yourselves to know, not just to think, but to know you are okay. You will make it through all of this density that seems impenetrable right now. And I know many of you are suffering from or feeling suffering from so many different aspects of our living presence in this modern world. We will see each other through this, because that's being kindred spirits, not just members of a race of being, not being just members of a certain faction or belief system. It's we as a collective that was created through and by a higher source of beingness that we now understand thousands of different ways. Yet as kindred spirits, we come back into wholeness and seek in each other those parts that need to be remembered. The goodness, the kindness, the compassion, the love, the joy, the bliss. Seek that. Make that your priority this week. To seek that wherever you are and in whatever you're doing. And even if it's only for a brief moment, grab it. Grab it. Hold it to your heart and say thank you. I know you exist. I haven't forgotten what joy feels like. I haven't forgotten what love feels like. I haven't forgotten. Because as kindred spirits, this is what we do. This is our greatest gift to each other. And for those kindred spirits with which you may have had separation or arguments or breakdowns of communication, know that down the pathway, if we stay in the middle path, further down the road, we may see them again. And they may have traveled further down their path. And we'll be able to communicate once again. Because this is what's happening. Our differences are not really differences. We're just not experiencing the same differences at the same time. So, with that said, I just want to thank you all from showing up this morning. And my blessings for you. Margaret has the last message, walking each other home. Yeah, we are walking each other home. And this is why we meet so many different kindred spirits through this technological communication system. And we'll agree with them, and then all of a sudden they may say something and it triggers us into some sort of frenzy. And I'm capable of doing that to you just as much as you're capable of doing that to me with what you say in the sidelines. But you'll notice that when I answer everybody and I read those, the ones who are totally negative, I delete because they don't serve a purpose other than allowing a space for others to express their anger in. But I can't allow that anger and that frustration to infect the sacredness of this talk. I send them love. I will always answer with love. Because that's all there is. But again, we do not have to tolerate. We do not have to be stay in a place where negativity is being directed to us intimately. And it's up to us to see what it's bringing up in us and correcting wherever that wound is first. And if it's not possible, then we need to perhaps end that relationship. Because there's no need anymore for us to be abused in any shape, manner, or form by any other human being, any animal, or any structure of community. You know, I think it's the Amish, they called it shunning, and they would shun you. And because they knew the power of shunning. The power of shunning was not accepting you. Not accepting you. And many of us have not been accepted. And that's why we look for kindred spirits. But those kindred spirits weren't accepted either. So the wound of non-acceptance is what needs to be repaired or dismissed, released. For how does a creator create something and not accept it? They created it. Whatever we create, we're responsible for. I love you. I thank you. I respect you. I am you. You are me. We are unity. Have a blessed week. Find your kindred spirits. Enjoy them. And when things get rough, know that the purpose for that connection has come to a temporary end. And you'll both walk along your paths, not on the same path anymore, but parallel to each other. Or you may walk a little faster, or they may walk a little faster. But just know we're all heading home. As is said, we're all heading home. We're not too sure what home is. But I can tell you what, it's filled with compassion. Have a great week. I'll see you next Friday, and blessings to all. And share the message of love wherever you are to whoever needs it. And with that, I'm complete, and I'm going to end this call. And I thank you all for showing up. And as I read the comments later and send you love, know that those little hearts that I sent you are sent from me. And I do send them with love. Thank you. Have a great week.